This portion of Lee Pitts Live is brought to you by Hodges University, educating the leaders of our community for over 20 years.
Welcome back, Southwest Florida. I'm so delighted to open up the show here and get a chance to talk to a leader in our country, international leader, I think. I got a chance to read his book, and it just kept me spellbound. And I know you guys have never heard me say this on the show, but after reading this book, which I think is one of the best books I ever read by Reid, it made me feel like I hadn't done anything with my life. That book is up on the screen. It's called Three Sisters Pond. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the studio the author of the book, Reid. Phil, welcome to Lee Pitts Live. Let me ask you this. Has anybody else ever told you that when they read that book, it made them feel the same way, that they hadn't done anything with their life?
Yes, there was one particular person that told me that after reading that book, they realized that they had challenged themselves sufficiently enough and actually changed jobs and moved out of state to Texas. Okay,
it actually made me start thinking about I need to do something else. People think, I'm not saying I'm successful, but people think I've been successful, with swimming and banking and all this TV stuff. But man, I thought, and I used to get it all the time, how do I find time to do all the things that I do? But when I was looking at where you came from in Baltimore and your mom raising 3 kids by herself, your brothers and this and that, and then for you to rise to like the highest rank in the FBI was just an amazing thing. But I said all that to say that when you first decided that you wanted to write a book, what was that like for you in terms of coming to the realization I need to put my pen to pad?
Well, originally I wanted to write about one particular case, the bombing of Pan Am 103, the investigation, because it was a very interesting, intriguing investigation, and it took 3 years. But as I started to put pen to paper, I realized that there was much more that I wanted to share and needed to share beyond just that one case.
Now, the Pan Am flight, it was a national news story at the time. When you realized that you were going to be investigating that bombing there, or that, what would you call it? How would you describe that?
Yeah, it was the bombing of the Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, back on December 21st.
I guess terrorism, right?
It was a terrorism investigation.
Right. Did it seem like a daunting task right off the bat?
Absolutely. Very, very challenging. There were 270 persons murdered in that bombing. And initially, we had no clue as to who was responsible. And over a 3-year period, we were able to put the pieces together, connect the dots, and fortunately, were able to identify at least 2 Libyan intelligence officers that were involved in that bombing, which we eventually took to trial in the Netherlands in the year 2000.
Yeah, that book, your book, I don't want to give it all away, but your book really does a great job of how you and your comrades were interacting in that trial situation. Let's back up for a second and then go forward. And I'm kind of hesitant to ask this question because I only got so much time in this interview because I know you have an extensive background, but tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Baltimore, and I was educated in public schools and Catholic schools in Baltimore. Eventually, I became a Baltimore City police officer. I was with them for 8 years. I started off on the street, working cases on the street, and then eventually moved up to personnel, where I recruited for the police department, and then eventually taught in the police academy. And then in 1977, I became an FBI agent, and I was with them for 28 years. And I started working with the Bureau, working your typical criminal investigations, your fugitives, your extortions, your kidnappings. I was on various SWAT teams in New York and Washington, D.C., and then worked my way up through the ranks as a supervisor, as a assistant special agent in charge, and as a special agent in charge, and I was the first black special agent in charge of the Denver division of the FBI, which covers the state of Colorado and Wyoming.
When people pick up your book, Three Sisters Pond, Rick, when people pick up your book, what do you expect them to get out of this book?
Well, there were several reasons why I wrote the book. One was that I went through poverty. I had my educational challenges, and so I wanted to make sure that I shared those experiences with the idea of, with regard to poverty, that you can overcome your poverty. That's not an excuse to succeed in life. Education. I had my educational challenges. I graduated from high school with a high school diploma, but with a fourth grade education. So I had to spend about a year and a half to recover from that, going back to the library and starting back with first grade readers, and working my way up to where I could actually pass a test to get with the police department.
One of the things that I noticed in reading your book, that along the way, as you were moving up in the ranks and achieving a lot of things, even becoming a teacher and a recruiter and so on and so forth, you were always looking to help somebody else along the way. You also were constantly looking to improve yourself, to the degree where you actually went back, took elementary school books and started to educate yourself to become a better person. That message to me resonated throughout your experiences there. What about you made you so concerned about being the best you could educationally and helping other people, particularly African Americans?
Well, I thought it was one of the messages I wanted to convey in this book was is how important it is to have dreams and have goals in life. And that's one of the things that once you start down that path of having dreams and having goals in life, it's going to force you to make yourself better, every step of the way. And so I found myself, I realized that if I wanted to, have a piece of the American dream, I first had to get that education. So which forced me, coming out of high school with that fourth grade education, to go back to school, go back to the library and start bringing myself to where I should be in order to be in a position to go to college, finish up college, and progress through life.
Now, you held some high positions, and Rick, I'm just letting you know, Rick, we're not going to use that B-roll, so I'm going to take more time on this, Jay. You, in all these different high positions you were moving yourself up to in Baltimore Police Department, in the FBI, and so on, you were unique in many situations in your position being black. How did people respond to you? I mean, I think at some point you had like 80 people working under you. How did they respond to an African American in a leadership position back then?
Well, I think...
Was race a factor?
Well, I can tell you this, working on the street, one of the things I found, I was surprised about working the streets in Baltimore, was that black kids were being arrested for being involved in fights. And I remember all the fights I was involved in growing up. And if I had been arrested for those fights, I would have never been able to be a police officer or anything else. And so one of the things I did once I became a police officer was address that as an issue that we needed to kind of put an end to.
Okay.
Also, when I got into recruitment, what we realized was that the testing that we were given was discriminatory to blacks, and so we had that changed. And also, once I started teaching at the police academy, my job at that point was to make sure that those who we did get into the academy graduated. Mm-hmm. So one of the messages I wanted to convey in this book is that how important it is for blacks to be in law enforcement. Right. Because if you're not in there, you can't make a difference. You can't recognize problems and address them unless you're there. And then once you're in there, you need to be in a position of responsibility and authority.
Okay, we're gonna come back to that. Just a heads up, Rick. When we do go to a break, we're gonna go to that last break, Rick. As an FBI agent, were you sort of like moving around in a covert lifestyle? You know, you don't really want people to know who you are. How is that? I mean, go ahead, take us behind the scene. What's it like not wanting everybody to know that you're an FBI agent?
Well, I wanted everyone to know I was an FBI agent because I was so proud of being an FBI agent. I wasn't of the personality to work undercover, so to speak.
Okay.
I basically worked very overtly, and I loved being able to flash my badge. I loved the fact that other folks knew that I was an FBI agent. So I worked very overtly, and I worked investigations, not only here in the United States, but I work what we call extraterritorial terrorism investigations around the world, in other countries like Pakistan, India, the Philippines.
And a brother like
Europe.
you over there in Alaska, man, we're freezing your butt off. Hey, let's go to, we got about 2 minutes left. One of your subtitles in chapter 12, the bananas are rotten. Talk about that.
Well, the bananas are rotten was a code that the CIA had for a double agent that they were operating out of the island country of Malta. It turned out to be very important to the solution of the Pan Am 103 bombing investigation. And the problem was, once we realized that we needed to interview this particular double agent, he had already returned to Tripoli, Libya, and so a message was conveyed to him that the bananas are rotten. And when he got that message, he realized that his relationship with the CIA had been compromised and that he needed to get back to Europe so that we could interview him.
Man, that's outstanding. I wish I could go on with you. I got to go to a commercial break. This has been great. I want people to know that he is here. He lives here in Southwest Florida, lives in Naples. And is it fair to say we gave information how people can get your book, but people can also get you to come out and do some speaking and role modeling for the kids?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's Phil Reid right here in Southwest Florida.